Did he take the pawn?
He took the
He's
pawn.
taking the pawn.
What a game this was. In round 9 of Norway chess, the two strongest players in the world, Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana. We love to see them clash, and these were the opening moves of this incredible battle. Magnus Carlsen with white here, move 3, and he plays pawn g3. Now he's been doing a lot of work with his second, a chess playing cat called Alan. They've gone deep on these lines here. He loves to test Fabi in the latest grandmother theory, and after knight f3, both players castling, quick king safety fist bump, exploded out, excellent etiquette. We see takes on c4. Looks so counterintuitive to open the white bishop, but after queen c2, a6, black saying, okay, you want to take, I'm going to hit you with the wham bam slam, and I'm challenging the diagonal straight away. But that's a key line. You can also go a4, but Magnus plays the mysterious rook move of rook d1. Great way to get in your opponent's head, freak him out. Now of course it protects the pawn, x-rays the queen, makes c5 impossible, but it's not the main line by any stretch. Fabi gets to hold on to his pawn now, and Magnus centralizes this one, preparing to eat an entire rook, so this guy intercepts. Yes, this could be on the way, but the moment you do it, you blunt your own bishop. So Magnus holds off, he shows the point of the whole position, and it's pawn to b3. A full gambit, and he knows Fabi's going to munch that one, as he does, because he loves the fish protein right now. So what's Magnus playing for here? Well, Fabi's under pressure. In the words of Freddie Mercury, we now see bishop b7, and because Magnus wants to dominate the weakest square in the black position, he plays this instructive bishop a3, trying to get them off the board, then he can sink a knight in. So Fabi goes bishop d6, saying fine, capture me, I take with the pawn, I plug the hole, I challenge the c file. So Magnus goes knight d3. We see the point of the strategy now. You never go b4, by the way. Bishop drops back. It's positional suicide, giving up this square. So knight d7 was played, hinting at the advance of the c pawn later. And now Magnus expands with pawn e4. Bit of a traffic jam with the black pieces. You know, if you retreat straight away, you run into e5, you go to fork Vegas. So that's why we now see captures at this moment. Magnus takes back with the rook. Now the knight can retreat. You're not running into e5. The pawn's about to drop, so knight d2 defends it, and there's a big positional threat here, which is pawn b4. If you achieve that, how are you ever playing a5 or c5? White's having all the fun. So a5, excellent move from Fabi. These rooks double, preparing to win a pawn, and if you do this, fine, playable, but this poor guy's crying himself to sleep for the rest of the game. So we come back, Fabi plays the really instructive move, and it's pawn to c5. He gives back the pawn, material now level, but he frees his position. This guy's had his eyes opened. Queen c7's played, but b4 Fabi can have it all his own way. Magnus advances that pawn. What happens if a4? Well, definitely playable, but a little better to white, according to the all-powerful engine, right? Very difficult for any human to assess this, but okay, is what it is. Maybe to do with white's extra control of the center. Let's come back. We see takes played instead. Now this pair of rooks leave the board, and taking another pair off is the best move. You know, fully rickroll the guy, but rook roll rather, ruined my own pun, but Magnus decides to keep the rooks on the board here, keeping the tension, really trying to squeeze Fabi. Now we see the rook come back to the c file, and queen b2 prepares to win back the pawn. h6 is played, tidy chess, the pawn drops, b5 under fire, so bishop c6 covers, and now after queen b2, making way for knight b4, Fabi doesn't find quite the best setup here. You know, knight c6, very playable, preparing to just give up the bishop but put a knight on that square, blockade, blockade, blockade. But he goes rook a8, we see knight b4, and knight e5 is his response. Now it does cover here, of course, prepare to do the same plan upon takes, but you run into this, pawn f4, Magnus roaring away like a chess lion, and this is Fabi's point. He plonks it here, spawning a seahorse, but not for long, because Magnus takes, pawn takes. Now he flicks in this one. 2 pairs of minor pieces leaving the board, but in the entire process of this, he's won a pawn, and it's less easy now to blockade than it was in some of those other lines with 2 knights on the board. Fine, rook c8 from Fabi going after the pawn, so Magnus now expands with this pawn push, opens his bishop, sets up a beautiful connect 4 as well, we shouldn't overlook. Only goes and unlocks himself a spa day with Danny Wrench. What a lucky guy. This knight now centralizes, and a great move from Magnus. You know, there's different ways to go. You could centralize with the queen, maybe do something with the king safety, but f5 is so direct. He's really turning the screw now, trying to undermine the
mushrooms.
So Fabi goes queen a6, absolute best move, great move, hits this rook here, and so Magnus retreats it. You know, if you supported with the queen, you can start getting into trouble because the knight starts hopping, queen's overloaded, rook drops. So this was best. Queen a7 goes for the pawn. Also x-rays the king, and so this is the time for Magnus to change up the structure. Takes with check a threat, so you do have to capture. Now he whips this one off the board. Pawn takes back, and the queen centralizes here, and he's got the threat now to run his extra pawn. White's dominating things here. It's so dangerous, but amazingly, queen d7. And Fabi sets up this blockade on the light squares. King g2, queen c6. And how do you actually make progress if black just pogo sticks back and forth? This becomes the big question now. Magnus really squeezing Fabi's kahunas, not literally of course, just on the board. Rook d2 goes for the pawn. You don't actually technically have to defend it, because if the queens ever come off, this king rushes in and it's hard to hold the pawns. But fine, defended. King g2, queen c6 back, rook d1, few more shuffly moves. You know, Fabi hinting at the invasion, the check, the perpetual ideas. Magnus covers, prepares to run the pawn, blocked once more. Fabi's really on the ball, and after queen f5, he even threatens again to invade on c2, and it stops Magnus from getting a bit frisky with that rook. There's too many perpetual check ideas. So rook b2 covers, good move, and amazingly, he gets Fabi to crack here with about 10 minutes on the clock. Because the best way to go is queen e6, and black carries on trying to just hold that blockade. Really not easy for white to make any progress, but Fabi plays the move of queen takes on h5.
Did he take the pawn?
He took the pawn!
The pawn. This is potentially a losing move.
An absolute shocker. I mean, it's up there with his Saturday night disco outfit. What's the problem with this? Well, Magnus can now play the pawn push c6. And the problem here is that you've not just got one passed pawn running, but 2 running. If you try, say, rook c8, well, now the queen's taking on d5 with check. Not good. What if queen f7 to cover and come back around? Then rook b7. Queen here, let's say, to stay with this and this and this. But then pawn c7 goes for the rook. Rook c8, rook b8. And of course you can't do anything, you know, the king's under fire, something like this, but you take, and you take with check, and you invade with the queen. You know, this is an example of a lost game. So we didn't see any of these things here. Fabi goes for king h7, understandable, and now which pawn push wins the game? Only one of them does. So well done if you saw the move here. It's pawn to e6. If you'd gone with the c pawn first, black can actually arrange some kind of defense, but this is terminal. You can't bring the queen back to f7 now. You open the white queen on the g7 pawn, could be checkmating ideas. They're both running just one square away from further pushing, so queen g6 was played, hits the pawn, also eyes the king. Magnus now switches with the rook, not afraid to hit a new file. He's just assessing the position again, every move, move by move, not too wedded to one plan. And again, how do you defend? You know, what if queen e8? Here's a defensive try. Well, still you push, rook goes. Now this one drops, and this is always the problem, is the pieces are overloaded. If you try and take, looks like you can, but then you invade. This kind of thing, again, you win the game like this. So let's run back. This not working, nothing working. Fabi desperately tries this counterplay move, but the pawn drops. Rook a3, and Magnus, cool and calm as a cucumber, plays queen e4. forces resignation. Queen can't take, it's pinned to the king, and if you take with the rook, well fine, you just sidestep and what to do. Rook here, you just take. If you take the queens off, fine, well then the pawn goes through, you know, absolutely unstoppable. I reckon Magnus can probably convert this one. Beautiful game. Eventually he actually went on to win the tournament. Do check out the video on screen if you want another epic game of chess from this tournament, and I hope to see you again soon. Cheers.